Have you ever wondered what series of events sparked one of the deadliest wars in American history? The Civil War? The Civil War, a pivotal moment in the narrative of America, was not ignited by a single event, but rather a series of happenings that built upon each other, eventually leading to a violent rupture. It's a tale steeped in political decisions, social tensions, and the struggle for human rights. Join us as we count down the top 10 events leading up to the Civil War. Starting off our countdown at number 10 is the Missouri Compromise. Let's rewind to the year 1820. At this point in American history, the country was in a delicate balance with 11 free states and 11 slave states. The question of Missouri's admission to the Union as a slave state threatened to upset this equilibrium. Enter the Missouri Compromise. Crafted by Henry Clay, this legislative measure admitted Missouri as a slave state while bringing in Maine as a free state, maintaining the balance. The compromise also drew a line at the 36° 30 parallel across the Louisiana Territory, with slavery prohibited north of this line. However, this compromise was more a stopgap than a solution. It merely silenced the contentious debate over slavery without addressing the underlying issue. The North and the South, each with starkly differing views on slavery, continued to grow apart. The Missouri Compromise was a band-aid solution that merely delayed the inevitable conflict. At number 9 we have the Kansas-Nebraska Act. This piece of legislation, passed in 1854, was an attempt to address the issue of whether new states would allow slavery. The act allowed citizens in the territories of Kansas and Nebraska to decide for themselves if they would be free or slave states, a concept known as popular sovereignty. But here's where things get messy. This act effectively repealed the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which had kept a careful balance between free and slave states. The Kansas-Nebraska Act led to a rush of pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers into Kansas, each hoping to sway the vote in their favor. This resulted in a period of violence known as Bleeding Kansas, and it further increased tensions between the North and the South. It became clear that the issue of slavery was not going to be resolved peacefully or easily. The Kansas-Nebraska Act opened a can of worms that the nation wasn't ready to handle. Coming in at number 8 is the Dred Scott decision. This landmark ruling by the United States Supreme Court in 1857 sent shockwaves through the nation. Dred Scott, a man enslaved in Missouri, sued for his freedom on the grounds that he had lived in regions where slavery was illegal. The court, however, ruled that Scott, as an African American, was not a citizen, and therefore had no right to sue. This decision not only denied Scott his freedom, but also declared the Missouri Compromise of 1820 unconstitutional, which had prohibited slavery in certain territories. This ruling essentially opened all U.S. territories to slavery and intensified the ongoing conflict between the North and South over the issue of slavery. The Dred Scott decision, therefore, served as a catalyst for the Civil War. It further polarized the nation and pushed it closer to the brink of war, highlighting the deep divide within the United States over the issue of slavery. The Dred Scott decision was a stark reminder of the deep-seated racial tensions within the country. At number 7 we have John Brown's raid on Harpers Ferry. In the year of 1859, the abolitionist John Brown led a group of 21 men in a daring raid on the Federal Armory in Harpers Ferry, Virginia. Their goal was to seize the armory's cache of weapons and spark a slave uprising across the South. However, things didn't quite go as planned. The raid ended up being a 2-day standoff with local militia and federal troops, concluding with Brown's capture. Brown was subsequently tried for treason and hanged, but his raid had lasting implications. It further deepened the divide between the North and South, escalating the tensions over slavery. Brown's willingness to take violent action against the institution of slavery shocked many, but also inspired others. His actions were a stark reminder of the lengths some were willing to go in the fight against slavery. John Brown's raid was a wake-up call that signaled the impending storm. Coming in at number 6 is the election of Abraham Lincoln. A turning point in American history, the election of Lincoln in 1860 was a crucial catalyst in the lead-up to the Civil War. Lincoln, a member of the newly formed Republican Party, was known for his opposition to the expansion of slavery into new territories. This set him at odds with the southern states, where the economy was deeply intertwined with the institution of slavery. Upon his election, 7 southern states seceded from the Union even before he took office, fearing that their way of life was under threat. 4 more would follow after the war began. The North and South had been at odds for decades over a range of issues, but it was Lincoln's election that ignited the fuse, leading to the most destructive conflict on American soil. The election of Abraham Lincoln was the final straw that broke the camel's back. As we look back on these events, we can see the domino effect that led to the Civil War. It's a complex mosaic where each piece holds its own significance, yet together they form a picture of a nation divided and on the brink of war. Let's revisit the Missouri Compromise, a pivotal moment that ignited the first sparks of disagreement between the North and South over the contentious issue of slavery. Then came the Kansas-Nebraska Act, another key milestone, which further deepened the chasm by allowing territories to decide their stance on slavery. The Dred Scott decision, a landmark court case, added fuel to the fire by ruling that Congress had no power to regulate slavery in the territories, enraging the abolitionists in the North. The audacious John Brown's raid on Harpers Ferry was a catalyst that intensified the animosity, making a peaceful resolution seem more unlikely with each passing day. And finally, the election of Abraham Lincoln, an event that tipped the scales towards conflict. His anti-slavery stance was seen as a threat by the Southern states, leading to their decision to secede, paving the way for the Civil War. Each event was a domino setting off the next, a chain reaction that led to one of the most significant periods in our history. The Civil War was not a result of a single event, but a culmination of decades of tension, conflict, and disagreement.